In a previous video, I talked about the stages of sleep. I broke down the benefits of those stages, and I also talked about the ways that we can interfere with those stages and disrupt the rest that we need to be getting. For a super quick recap, there are two broad stages of sleep. We have non-REM and then we have REM. For non-REM, the stages are referred to as N1, N2, and N3. And then for REM, it's just REM by itself, and REM stands for rapid eye movement. Today we're going to be talking about N3 and how important it is for bodybuilding and any physical activity that you do. So let's say that you're a bodybuilder or a strength athlete or a runner. Every time you engage in your sport, you're breaking your body down in one way or another. Your muscle fibers are tearing apart, you're putting stress on your joints, or other things like that. And depending on your sport, this might be what we want to happen. Breaking down our muscles signals to our bodies that we need to repair things and then rebuild them stronger than they were before. This is why it's important to eat enough protein and to be in a caloric surplus if you want to gain muscle. It's important that your body has the supplies that it needs to begin that rebuilding process. Think about adding a room to a house. If you hire the builders but you don't give them any supplies to work with, you're not going to get a lot done. In this metaphor, a caloric surplus represents the building materials. But we also need to give our bodies time to repair and to rebuild. And that happens when we sleep. So at this point, it's not even much of a metaphor. Just imagine that you hire the builders, then you don't give them any time to sleep. After that first day, not much is going to get done after that. Our society has a love-hate relationship with sleep, and that can really slow down our progress. It seems like many of us are willing to do whatever we can to sleep less. We recognize the importance of eating well, we recognize the importance of intense training, but man, if we can just stay on our phones a little bit longer, or wake up at 4 a.m. because a billionaire supposedly did that, we'll give up a few hours of sleep without a second thought. And maybe we're thinking, yes, I'm tired, but I can just have some coffee, I can have a Monster, or I can dry scoop some pre-workout, I'll be good to go. But that's not the truth. Missing out on N3 will do more than just leave you feeling tired. You can cover up feeling tired with caffeine, but you can't cover up the other effects. So let's talk a little bit about what N3 actually is. This is a picture of it, and to you, it probably just looks like a bunch of squiggles, which is totally fair. It really is just a bunch of squiggles. These waves right here are the tall delta waves that signify that your body is in N3. These waves come from the frontal lobe, but as you can see, they are overwhelming the other sensors dedicated to the other parts of the brain, and that's what's causing the entire page to become squiggles. To compare, this is another stage. This is N2. It's probably calmer than the picture of N3. So N3 is correlated with the release of growth hormone. The hormone production synchronizes with N3. Growth hormone increases muscle mass, it increases bone density. It does a lot of things. In general, our production of growth hormone declines as we age. Growth hormone is one of the many steroids that a bodybuilder might take. So while examples might show a large increase in muscle mass, not all of that is due to growth hormone. A lot of times bodybuilders are taking other things. So for someone who wants to stay natural, instead of using steroids and dealing with all the side effects that come with that, we can focus more on giving our body the correct environment, the best environment needed to build muscle, and really just to be healthy in general. This will also help avoid the look that some people consider grotesque. Those are unnatural amounts of muscle. Your body won't produce enough growth hormone. It won't produce enough of any steroid to get you to that level. So that's no longer a concern. So if we know that our bodies make less growth hormone as we get older, we know that N3 decreases as we get older, we really need to do everything we can to preserve as much of that as possible. That's going to be very important to recovering and growing muscle if you're a bodybuilder. It's going to be important to recovery if you're a marathon runner or a rock climber, or if you just want to be healthy. So how do we do that? How do we preserve our N3? The number one thing that you can do is to make sure that you are not sleep deprived. As we cycle through our stages, REM becomes more prominent as the night goes on, and N3, along with the other non-REM stages, becomes less prominent. Vice versa. When we first go to sleep, we spend more time in non-REM, and we spend less time in REM. If you're sleep deprived, in almost any way that would make you sleep deprived, you're waking up too early in this cycle. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up sacrificing your REM sleep. Now, sacrificing your REM sleep is not optimal to begin with. There are negative effects that come with not getting enough REM sleep. Most of it ends up being mental. But you might be like, hey, I don't care about that. I'm here to grow muscle. I don't care about my REM sleep. But you should, because there's a thing called REM rebound, and that is coming for your growth hormone. REM rebound is where, upon falling asleep, you go very quickly into REM sleep. If you've taken a nap and you have gone straight into a dream, more than likely you are experiencing REM rebound. This is our body trying to make up for the REM sleep that we missed out on. And that makes a lot of sense. REM has a lot of benefits to our body. Our body doesn't want to miss out on that. But wouldn't it be good if you didn't even give your body this issue? It didn't have to pick. It could just have all the REM that it wanted and all of the N3. Because that's what's going to happen is you are sacrificing N3 to get into that REM rebound. If you're experiencing REM rebound, you're double dipping into REM at the expense of N3. Now, that's not to say that you won't get any growth hormone at all, but it will be quite a bit less. So the first thing you need to do is keep an eye on how much sleep you are getting. The average person needs 8 hours of sleep. So I recommend starting there. Aim to get 8 hours of sleep. And then maybe add or remove an hour depending on how you feel. Because with 8 hours being the average, some people will need less and some people will need more. In my personal opinion, I think anything under 7 hours of sleep is probably too little, and anything over 9 hours of sleep is probably too much. And by too much, I mean it's probably a sign that you're sleep deprived. I know some people say that they are fine off of 6 hours of sleep. I just really don't believe that in most cases, because we are incentivized as people in this type of society to get as little sleep as possible. We have a lot of caffeine, a lot of stimulants to keep us going. So we can benefit from having less sleep and covering up the effect of being tired. So if you are one of those people, you know your body more than I do, probably. So just take this with a grain of salt, but really look at your life, really look at how you feel, and make sure that you're thriving on that 6 hours of sleep and not just surviving. Now, if it's a situation where you have to get 6 hours of sleep, you can't sleep any longer because of kids or work, that is what it is. I'm not saying to do anything to change that if you can't, but at least be honest about it. And if you need close to 10 hours of sleep, in my opinion, you are probably sleep deprived. I'd suggest that you take a look at your sleep habits. If you're sleep deprived because you're staying up too late on weekdays and then you're sleeping for 10 hours Saturday night and Sunday night, don't just look at the Saturday and Sunday nights and say that you need 10 hours of sleep. Pay attention to the fact that you were only getting 7 or 6 hours most of the week before that. And then if you are not sleep deprived, but you still need 10 hours of sleep, pay attention to signs that you might have sleep apnea or any other sleep disorders, because what could be happening is your body realizes that you're getting low quality sleep, you're waking up a lot or you're arousing a lot, you're not getting into the deeper stages of sleep. So it tries to make up for that by having you sleep longer. But hey, if everything checks out, you're honest about your amount of sleep, you really are sleeping 10 hours every single night, you're not having any other sleep disorders, and you just need 10 hours of sleep, that's cool. Just make sure you get 10 hours of sleep every night. Another thing we can do is train our circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm is basically just our body's schedule. According to the Sleep Foundation website, our body begins cooling down 2 hours before we go to sleep, and our temperature continues to fall until the early morning. So fighting your circadian rhythm can lead to a ton of issues. As a person who has worked nights for way too long, I am a pro at those issues. It's not fun. Don't do it if you don't have to. So instead of fighting our circadian rhythm, we want to try to work with our circadian rhythm. One way to do that is to set our thermostat a few degrees lower a couple of hours before we go to sleep to kind of get that temperature cooling down a little faster and sync up with our circadian rhythm. Now, what temperature works best? So in my opinion, 68 degrees Fahrenheit is a good temperature. Some people might prefer a little cooler than that. Some people might prefer a little warmer than that. If you are to do anything, maybe err on the side of keeping your room colder. There's very little downside to having a room that is slightly too cold, but having a room that is slightly too warm will affect your sleep more. Another thing you can do is to be consistent. You're going to want to keep the same bedtime. If we're constantly switching up our bedtime, then again, we are fighting our circadian rhythm, and that's not a fight that we're going to win. Going to sleep multiple times per week at 2 a.m. will make going to sleep at 10 p.m. much harder, because we've trained our body to start cooling down around midnight. Midnight is our wind down time instead of 8 p.m., which would work better for that 10 p.m. bedtime. This is a good reason not to get too crazy on the weekends, even if you can sleep in. Understand that that might be scheduling a fight with your circadian rhythm later in that week. Good news is that once you do finally get into N3, you sleep very well. It is the deepest stage of sleep. it is very hard to wake people up out of N3. But still, you want to have good sleep hygiene. You want to give yourself the best odds for success. So pay attention to your bedroom. Pay attention to any light that might be creeping in. Pay attention to any sounds that might pop up throughout the night. If you need to, wear earplugs. Maybe wear a sleep mask. If you've got a lot of light coming outside of your window, get a couple of blackout curtains. Blackout curtains are a blessing for night shift people who sleep during the day. But for you, if you're not a night shift person, then it's going to really help you go to sleep and get into N3 by keeping that street light or that car light or whatever out of your bedroom. So that's it for now. Please try to not be sleep deprived. Get as much sleep as you can. And I guess I will see you at the next video.